digit growth. As we all know, investors are motivated by fear and greed. When investors look at projects in Africa, they should suffer from fear of missing out on investment returns, and missing out on creating a bigger social and environmentally positive impact that can be attained anywhere else in the world. Esteemed delegates, we are privileged to be joined together here in Abuja. But make no mistake, AFC Life is not a talking shop. I challenge everyone here to follow the example of the AFC and its partners and to help equip our institutions so that they can invest and deploy capital at scale. We need, as African governments, as central banks, as corporate leaders, as investors, to rally together and be bolder in our ambitions and support our continental champions and institutions like the AFC. Thank you to all of you who believe in Nigeria. Thank you to all of you who believe in Africa and who are working with the AFC and our continent's champions. Let us be bold in our ambitions and steadfast and urgent in our execution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kingsley Obiora, the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Chair of the Board for Africa Finance Corporation, for those sterling words. Now, there is obviously a common theme or common themes that are running through today. Climate resilience, net zero, the fact that we're looking at an energy transition. But, you know, they say, you know, they always taught me as a young boy, knowledge is power. And that, you know, if you can gather together the right knowledge, data, information, and understand where you're going, you'll get to where you're going. AFC understands this and have done some rigorous work. And today is quite an important day, and it's wonderful to see you, Your Excellencies, because we're very proud for you to witness the launch of the AFC White Paper Roadmap to Africa's COP, a pragmatic path to net zero, which we will now be doing for you. I'm going to invite to the stage to give the opening remarks, Mr. Samaila Zubair, President and CEO of AFC. Please give him a warm round of applause.
I'd like to call on Professor Carlos Lopez. It's on the go. I'd like to call on Mr. Tanguy Gahuma, Chair Africa Group of Negotiators at COP26. I'd like to call on the moderator of this panel, Ms. Zainab Ayan Adam. Excellencies, will just crave your indulgence for a few minutes. We think this is very important because we must have a unified narrative about what is important for us in Africa and our path to net zero. So very quickly, We are all aware of the issues and challenge of climate. We all know what needs to happen, but we think the most important thing that we can do as Africans as we look forward to COP27 is that we should have a unified narrative about what is important for Africa. We have mentioned before that we are least responsible for climate change, and that the best way for us to intervene and the best contribution that Africa can make to climate is not by reducing the emissions that we don't make. That's not how we reduce carbon emissions, because we don't make them in any case. Our energy intensity is too low for any emissions to happen. And like I mentioned in the past, we are already absorbing most of the emissions through our forests. African forests absorb far more carbon than any forest in the world. So we are making our contributions. What we should do, like we've all said here, is that we must localize production. We must create jobs. We must look at other sustainable development goals such as poverty reduction, energy access, as we consider the global energy transition and now the global energy security that most of the world is looking at. So I'll quickly hand over to the moderator to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Samaila Zubero. Also thank you and welcome, Excellencies, the Vice President of Nigeria, the President of Ghana, honorable ministers from DRC and Chad. We also thank the Central Gap Bank governors that initiated AFC, and also our chairman, Dr. Kingsley Obiora. This paper, Samaila, is the most extensive paper that has been done on climate in Africa. And your leadership, we talk about, because African climate has been a narrative given to us. This is the first time that any institution has articulated the African climate narrative from an African perspective. We talk about our emission profile in ways that is so comprehensive. We talk about the role of gas in powering Africa. Africa is endowed with significant amount of gas resources. Today, it's the most stable source. It's cheaper for us. You can get gas for a few cents per kilowatt hour. We also talk about the role of the carbon sinks, Africa's forests. So important, because if you look at our emission profile, if you just add our carbon sinks, if we can preserve that, we are already at net zero. It also talks about transitional metals. Everybody's gotten out of mining, but for even renewable energy to go, to support that, we need all the African metals, which currently they're being depleted at a very cheap price. It is also talking about the role of industrialization and to cut emissions. It talks about the need to innovate. Africa is inherited already a warmed world where others have developed in our back. So the idea of localizing manufacturing and also supporting getting the money from those who industrialize to support Africa to adapt to the impacts of climate change that everyone has talked about, and also for us to develop in a sustainable way are key. So we have a great panel here, and we have the chairman of Afri-Exim Bank, a key partner and a key supporter, and an institution we have worked a lot together on. That is Dr. Benedict Orama, to really talk about this report and what it entails. So I'll start with Samaila Zubairu, the president, to highlight, and then we will hear from our partners. We also have Mr. Tangwe Gahoma. He is someone we are working very closely with from Gabon. He happens to be the chair of the African Group of Negotiators. In climate, you have three forces. You have the negotiators, and we want to hear from him as to how we are approaching the negotiation. Are we going to get more money, which has to be in the form of concessional or grants, to support Africa adapt to this arena? So what are we taking to COP27? And then we have Professor Carlos Lopez, professor in the Mandela School of Public and Government, University of Cape Town, and also an associate at Chatham House. These are the key makers that could spread the messages on this report. So let me first turn it over to Samaila briefly and to talk about what do you want to hear from this panel, and then we will go to the chair of African Group of Negotiators to highlight what are the political stands that we're taking to COP27. We will turn it over to our partner institution, and then we will end with Professor Carlos Lopez to give us a perspective as to how this report fares, in your opinion, and how would it unite the African voice around the climate angle. President Samaila.
Thank you. So I've said a lot about the climate paper and its importance. I think my key message on the climate is I want consensus of African leadership about what the issues are and what we should be focusing on ahead of COP27. I've talked about the need for us to localize industry. I've talked about the need for us to build resilient infrastructure. I've also talked about the need for us to financially innovate as we call it. This is important because we need capital to crowd in. I would stop here because I know we're pressed for time and ask the next person to speak.
Thank you very much, Excellency, Vice President of Nigeria, President of Ghana. I just want to say that this white paper is really important for Africa. Africa is maybe one of the most important continents today in terms of climate change, because we are not responsible of the situation, but we suffer the most today from climate change. The last scientific reports say already that when in the other region of the world the temperature will rise by 1 degree Celsius, in Africa it will mean 2 degrees Celsius. So we will suffer the most about climate change, and we don't have the capacity today to face this negative impact of climate change. We know already that you see level rise, the water management in our city will be very, very challenging for us, but we don't have money for that. And this is what we say in Glasgow. It's clear that we need to put a lot of effort in terms of keep the trajectory of 1.5 degree alive, because this is what the planet needs. But we also need to think about our population, our people, our continent, how we can face the climate change. And the priority for Africa is mitigation, yes, but it's also adaptation. How we can be resilient to what will happen in the next couple of years. This is why we really work on the climate finance. This white paper from IFC has three pillars: localize, rebuild, and innovate. And we really think that this is what Africa needs. We need to localize, because our cities today, 80% of the people of Africa live in the city. So we need to have some resilient infrastructure, some resilient ports, some resilient road, because we don't want to lose any more money. We need to develop ourselves. We need also to rebuild. Rebuild for us means that we need to be resilient. We need to adapt our strategy, our national plan to what will come in the next few years. And in finance, it's really important. Finance is the core element of all the action on climate change. And today, 12 years after this commitment from developed country that we'll have the 100 billion per year, this is a failure. In Glasgow last year,
Ayuna was born in Russia but can no longer